Alright guys, last question, question 12. The extinct woolly mammoth, Mammuthus primigenus, was closely related and similar in size to the present-day elephants. It was herbivorous and highly adaptable to very cold climates with a dense undercoat and small fur-lined ears. The table below shows information about woolly mammoths inferred from extensive fossil evidence. So what we look at is the number of years ago, the event, and the abundance of mammoth. Clearly there's going to be a link between the event that occurs and the abundance, whether it's cataclysmic, etc. So we look at this one, look very high because they first appeared in northeast Siberia and all those countries. The climate warmed and then cooled again. So this particular change in temperature could be due to a decrease in the incidence of these or abundance of mammoths. Then we look at human hunting. That would clearly clear out a lot of these woolly mammoths and hence led to the low abundance of mammoths. And then from then on, it was a downhill spiral until they were non-existent 3,900 years ago, where the last woolly mammoth died. And so when we get into this particular question, we look at the question A, which is define the term selection pressure. And based on the information provided, give an example of a selection pressure on woolly mammoths. So this is a case where the definition for selection pressure that I give would differ slightly in some of the terms that VCAA have used here, but it's a classic case. If they use this definition, we want to use this definition in all the subsequent exams. So obviously this year included. So I would be taking this particular definition. A selection pressure is a factor in an organism's environment that removes unsuited individuals, and I would put that in my summary notes or my notes that I've actually accumulated. Now, when I look at that, and I think, okay, well, that's the definition they've given us, so we want to actually look towards it. We know that a selection pressure is just the idea of an environmental change that might have a negative impact upon that population. So what would that be? We could actually use two here that I can see. The climate warming, given that they, when we go up to the information, were highly adapted to very cold climates. So we could say the climate warming would be a selection pressure, but the most obvious ones would be human hunting. So humans acting as hunters would definitely be a selection pressure. So we move forward, and it has been suggested that elephant-like ancestors of the woolly mammoth left Africa 3.5 million years ago and lived in Central Europe. The chart below shows a summarized phylogenetic tree based on mitochondrial and chromosomal DNA from fossils and living plants. So we know the ancient elephant ancestor was in Africa, and then obviously all these particular species have been born off that and diverged. So when we look through into BI, explain how the woolly mammoth M. primigenus probably arose from the woolly mammoth ancestor M. africanus. Jeez, that was poor pronunciation, but I don't know what it's pronounced like. So, when I look at this, the two things that I think is obviously they looked in Africa and they might have gone to different species as we've looked at this. So, North America, Europe, and all these ideas. So, when I come to here, I'm thinking allopatric speciation or just speciation normally. And so, if we go through allopatric speciation, we want to look at how. Well, there's a couple of steps we know that in this way, applying our knowledge to the context of this question, these particular species here, they must have left Africa. These have originated from the ancient elephant ancestors leaving Africa. So my first one would be looking at mammoth ancestors left Africa. Then I'd think over a long period of time, genetic differences then accumulated. And so we know that occurs. And then in natural selection, that is actually one of the principles of it, that genetic diversity needs to be present within the population. Therefore, what happened is that the characteristics of the species changed through natural selection due to the different environment and obviously the different selection pressures that came with it. Now, we could actually just go through speciation itself, because that's obviously a viable explanation for this as well, in which case we'd say, obviously, within the original species, there would be genetic differences already present, and we know that's where natural selection takes place. But then through natural selection, individuals with those suitable characteristics or phenotypes survived and therefore reproduced, and upon reproducing in this survival advantage, because that's where they can do so, this group developed and over time evolved. And so those could be two, I suppose, explanations for how they probably arose from that particular species. Okay, last but not least, suggest how it could be possible for M. primigenus to have arisen so recently, yet now be extinct. So they've obviously gone extinct, while the Asiatic elephant, E. maximus, has been present for over 6 million years. And the big difference here must be the environment that they reside in, because we know selection pressures actually lead to the extinction of particular species. And obviously a massive selection pressure is humans and them hunting for food. So when I look at these things, this means E. maximus must have a very stable environment with very stable selection pressures that do not fluctuate, or where new selection pressures aren't introduced. So, when I look at my answer, I'd be thinking M. primigenus had limited genetic variation, we know that, and due to the selection pressures, for example, increased hunting by humans, they were unable to evolve. But obviously, in contrast, we look at E. maximus, and they would have lived in an environment with more stable selection pressures, which is obviously evinced by the fact that they've been around for 6 million years, and they're also in the present. So those are the big differences when we look at how they could have arisen so recently and been extinct, but while the other species has had, I suppose, greater longevity. And so it'd be due to those particular things, the environment, and obviously the selection pressures that come with it. But guys, that finishes off the walkthrough as the final video. I wish you all the best in terms of your exams. I think the main thing is you'll have got this done. Keep trying to go through those exams, and hopefully I'll have some updates for you coming into the later parts before the exam. But thanks very much, and good luck.